The monitor above bed 14 blinked a steady green rhythm, the only pulse in the room that didn't belong to me. I'd been on shift for 12 hours. No breaks, no real food. Just the usual mixture of caffeine and duty that had long replaced hunger. The ICU at St. Brigid's smelled like antiseptic and recycled air, humming softly with the whine of ventilators and the occasional distant alarm. When you work in a hospital long enough, the noise becomes a kind of music, background survival, a low hum that masks everything you don't want to think about. It was nearly 3 a.m. when I finally sat down at the nurse's station, rubbing the bridge of my nose, scrolling through patient charts on the computer. My phone buzzed twice in my pocket. I almost ignored it. I usually do. But the third vibration had a distinct tone. My banking app. At first, I thought it was another routine security notice. Then I saw the numbers. Withdrawal, $4,200. Joint savings account. Family. A tiny message beneath it. Transfer completed successfully. My throat tightened. For a few seconds, I stared at the screen as if the numbers might rearrange themselves into something logical. I almost laughed. A short, disbelieving breath. There had to be a mistake. A bank error, maybe. I'd been saving that account for months. Part of the long-term family fund I'd started years ago to help cover Dad's medications and future expenses. Nobody else was supposed to touch it. Still, a tiny, familiar voice inside me, the one that had kept me calm through car crashes, code blues, and family holidays, whispered, "It's probably fine. Just a misunderstanding. Don't overreact." That voice had kept me quiet for most of my life. When my shift ended, the city was still asleep. Philadelphia in winter has a way of feeling both too big and too close, the skyscrapers pressing down like judgment, the streetlights too bright for the hour. My breath came out in clouds as I walked to my car, scrolling back through the transaction history. It wasn't the first withdrawal. There had been others. Smaller ones. 200 here. 750 there. Dates stretching back months. The pattern was precise, deliberate. Someone had been taking my money, slowly enough that I wouldn't notice right away. I unlocked the car and sat there, staring at my reflection in the dark windshield. My face looked older than I remembered. Not old, just used. Like something that had been handled too many times. I tried calling the bank, but their overnight line was automated, so I called home. My mother answered on the second ring, her voice syrupy and soft. "Sweetheart, it's so early. Are you all right? Did you or Dad touch the savings account?" My voice was steady, too steady. A pause, then, "What do you mean?" "The joint account. There's a withdrawal for $4,200. "Oh," she said lightly, as though I'd asked about the weather. "That. Yes, we had to move some money temporarily. Your brother's situation." "My brother's situation?" I repeated. She sighed, the kind of sigh designed to make me feel unreasonable. "You know how hard things have been for him lately. His business is struggling, and the landlord was threatening." "You used my money," I said softly. "Our money, honey. It's a family account. Your father said—" But I'd already stopped listening. The line blurred. Not the phone connection. My focus. My heartbeat filled my ears. I could see the kitchen in my parents' house in my mind. The ceramic rooster on the counter. The smell of coffee. My mother's calm expression as she rationalized theft as help. It wasn't new. It was just bigger this time. I didn't yell. I didn't even hang up right away. I thanked her for telling me, said we'd talk later, and ended the call. Then I sat there in the hospital parking lot, watching the sun start to bleed into the horizon, a pale smear of light through a fogged windshield. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something shift. Not rage, not heartbreak, just the slow, quiet slide of realization. They hadn't stolen my money. They'd been taking it for years. Time, energy, patience, the soft parts of me that believed helping was love. And I'd handed it over again and again. By the time I got home, the city had fully woken. My apartment was small but clean. White walls, one dying fern, the faint hum of the heater that always kicked too hard in winter. I poured coffee, sat on the edge of the couch, and opened my laptop. If they wanted to call it family business, then I'd start treating it like one, professionally. I downloaded every transaction, every record, every statement from the last 3 years. I highlighted the dates, cross-referenced them with texts from my mother. I noticed the pattern, always right after a crisis. When my brother's lease was late, when Dad forgot to pay an insurance bill, when Mom said she'd take care of it this time if I was busy. It was a system, a quiet, calculated redistribution of my life's work. I looked at the total. $30,500. The number didn't even sting. Not yet. I was too numb to feel violated. Instead, I felt clinical, like I was documenting a patient's symptoms, a long-term infection that had finally reached the bloodstream. That night, I didn't sleep. I just watched the city lights outside my window, flickering through the blinds like heartbeat monitors. For years, I'd told myself they needed me. That being needed was the same as being loved. But love, I realized, doesn't come with invoices. And maybe the scariest thing wasn't that they'd taken from me. It was that I'd known, deep down, and kept letting them. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating again. 2 missed calls from my mother, 1 text from my brother. "Hey, heard you talk to Mom. Don't make a big deal out of it, okay? I'll pay you back when things stabilize." I stared at the screen, the words, "Don't make a big deal out of it," burning themselves into my retinas. They always said that. When I was 8 and did everyone's chores because my brother forgot. When I covered his rent the first time after college. When I co-signed his car loan because family helps family. My entire life had been one long exercise in not making a big deal out of things. I was back on shift by noon. The hospital corridors smelled like bleach and coffee and the faint metallic tang of fear. I liked that smell. It made sense to me. Pain and care existed side by side here. Transactional, yes, but honest. I was charting vitals when one of the newer nurses, Tiffany, leaned over. "Hey, you good? You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't," I said simply. She nodded, not prying. "Want coffee?" I shook my head. "I'm fine." It was my default answer. Always had been. But all afternoon, my mind wasn't on the patients. It was on the spreadsheet I'd built last night. The column of withdrawals, the notes I'd started adding. Rent due, Dad's car repairs, Mom's dental. A pattern. Every time I advanced in my career, their needs expanded. When I got promoted to senior nurse, they needed help with the mortgage. When I picked up a second job for overtime pay, my brother borrowed money for his startup. When I started talking about buying my own place, Mom said, "That's wonderful, honey, but maybe wait until things settle down here first." Here always meant them. And settle down never came. That night I called the bank. They confirmed the transfers. Same IP address, same authorization password. I felt the floor shift slightly beneath me. "Wait," I said. "That can't be right. I never gave them the password." The representative hesitated. "Well, Ms. Porter, it appears the last time the security question was changed was May 16th of last year. The answer is your mother's maiden name." I almost laughed. Of course it was. I remembered that conversation. Mom had called, saying she was having trouble checking the balance because you set it up so complicated. I'd walked her through it, told her how to reset the password. She'd sounded so grateful. And that's how it started. One act of trust disguised as efficiency. At home, I sat at my kitchen table with the documents spread out like patient charts. Each sheet was another symptom. A slow, cumulative deterioration. A lifetime of tiny compromises that now filled my one-bedroom apartment like ghosts. In the corner of my fridge was a family photo. Me, my parents, and my brother at his graduation. He was holding his diploma. I was holding his flowers. That felt symbolic now. The following Sunday, I drove out to their house. Suburbs, identical lawns, the smell of cut grass and denial. Mom greeted me at the door like nothing was wrong. Her perfume a sharp mix of vanilla and control. "There's my girl. I made your favorite, lasagna." I smiled out of habit. "Can we talk inside?" Dad was in his recliner watching golf. My brother wasn't there yet. I placed the printed bank statements on the coffee table. The sound of paper against wood was louder than I expected. "I looked into the account," I began. There's over 38,000 missing. Dad didn't look away from the TV. Your brother needed help. It's all within the family. That's not how legality works, I said quietly. He sighed, muting the screen. Maya, you're making this sound criminal. We're not strangers. You know he's been struggling. Mom chimed in, her tone soothing, almost maternal. Sweetheart, money isn't everything. You're so blessed. A good job, no kids, stable income. He's had it rougher. I felt a small muscle twitch in my jaw. So you took my savings without asking. Mom blinked, feigning hurt. Don't say it like that. How should I say it? It's family support. We raised you. We've always been there for you. That was their favorite weapon. Gratitude as guilt. They wielded it so skillfully it could almost pass for love. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. Instead, I said, I'm hiring an auditor. The silence that followed was so sharp I could hear the refrigerator hum across the room. Dad turned fully toward me, face hard. An auditor? Are you threatening us? I'm clarifying things, I said. The account was in my name. If the bank flags it, they'll contact me first. I just want the truth on record. Mom's voice dropped to a whisper. You wouldn't really do that to your own family. I met her eyes. You already did. When I left that day, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean, like a wound after it's been properly dressed. Still sore, still raw, but no longer festering. In the car, I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. For the first time in years, I didn't see the family's nurse. I saw a woman learning how to stop bleeding for other people. The first thing I did was buy a notebook. A small black moleskin with gridded pages, the kind I used to take vitals in during my residency. The handwriting in those days had been cramped and urgent, filled with numbers that meant life or death. This time, the numbers meant something different, the measure of a lifetime of giving. On the first page, I wrote, March 2021, October 2024, withdrawals unexplained. Then, line by line, I listed each one, dates, amounts, purpose. The process was almost comforting. I understood order, data, proof. Emotion had no place in a chart. It was how I'd survived the ICU. Now it was how I'd survived them. By the end of the week, I had a timeline. It wasn't just theft. It was a pattern of expectation. Every financial hit coincided with a family event. A birthday, a mortgage payment, my brother's new business, a sudden emergency. I emailed an accountant I knew through a patient's family. Someone discreet, experienced with sensitive personal matters. We met in a quiet coffee shop on 8th Avenue. He was older, polite, the kind of man who didn't blink at uncomfortable stories. I handed him the folder and said simply, My family accessed my account without consent. I need to know exactly how deep it goes. He studied me for a moment before speaking. You seem calm. I'm a nurse, I said. Panic wastes time. He nodded. Then let's begin. At home, I began to receive texts again. Mom, we're worried about you. You've been so distant, Dad. Let's not make this uglier than it needs to be. Brother, it's just money, Maya. Don't ruin the family over this. Each message felt like a pulse I no longer wanted to take. So I stopped answering. I muted their chat group. I muted my own guilt. At work, my body moved through motions. BP cuffs, IV drips, charts, smiles that didn't reach my eyes. One of the doctors, Singh, the resident with too much energy, caught me in the hallway. You look focused, he said carefully. That bad? He smiled. That surgical kind of focus, like you're about to operate. I might be, I said, on my life. He blinked, uncertain if I was joking. I wasn't. A week later, the accountant called. His voice was steady, but the air behind his words felt heavy. Maya, I've traced over 50,000 in unauthorized activity over the past 3 years. Mostly small withdrawals, under thresholds that would flag suspicion. Whoever did this understood limits. My stomach tightened. My father's an engineer, my brother's in finance. He exhaled softly. Then I suppose that explains the precision. I stared at the city skyline through my window. Neat, ordered, efficient, just like them. He hesitated before adding, Would you like me to refer a lawyer? Yes, I said. And then, after a pause, make sure they're good at silence. The lawyer's office was all glass and understatement. Her name was Elaine Ross, mid-40s, sharp eyes, gentle voice. She listened as I explained. Each detail, each manipulation, each family phrase that now felt like poison disguised as endearment. When I finished, she said, "You've been documenting this for a while." I nodded. "I document everything." "That will make this easier," she said. "We'll file for an independent audit, request disclosure from the bank, and prepare a civil claim if necessary. Quietly." Quietly is key. Her gaze softened. "You don't want revenge?" "No." "What do you want?" I thought for a moment. To end the pattern. Whore. The weeks that followed blurred into paperwork and silence. Mom left voicemails in that trembling, performative tone she used when she wanted sympathy. "Maya, sweetheart, this is tearing us apart. You know your brother's not malicious. He's just struggling. You're stronger. You can handle it." That sentence, "you're stronger," was the backbone of my family mythology. It excused every wound. I didn't delete her messages. I saved them for evidence. The tension reached its quiet peak one Sunday morning when Dad showed up at my apartment unannounced. He looked older, grayer, clutching a folder of his own. "Maya," he began, voice measured, "this has gone far enough. You're making things formal that should stay private." "Private is what let it happen," I said. He sighed, sitting down without being asked. "You don't understand how hard it is keeping this family together. Your brother made mistakes. We all did. But dragging lawyers into it? That's excessive." "Excessive is $50,000, I replied. He looked at me like I'd just betrayed the family name. "Money isn't everything." "No," I said, "integrity is." Whore. For a long moment we just sat there, the air between us thick with years of unspoken obligation. Then I said very softly, "You raised me to be responsible. You just never expected me to hold you accountable." He flinched, just slightly, then stood. "This isn't the end of it," he muttered, and walked out. But it was, at least for me. Whore. That night I closed my eyes and slept for the first time without dreaming of debt. I'd started to reclaim something that had nothing to do with money. Autonomy, dignity, silence that belonged to me. The invitation arrived as a text, mid-shift, sandwiched between a patient's discharge summary and a coffee that had already gone cold. "Mom. Family dinner Sunday. We all need to talk. Please come. For me." It had the rhythm of a command disguised as kindness. For a moment I almost smiled. Even now they thought I was predictable. That responsible meant compliant. I typed sure and hit send. No punctuation, no emoji. Sunday came gray and damp. The kind of day where the air feels heavy before the rain starts. Their house looked the same. The white siding, the manicured lawn, the faint smell of detergent and cinnamon that clung to the porch. A memory wrapped in static. When Mom opened the door, her face rearranged itself into that expression I knew so well. Half reproach, half affection. "Maya," she said, voice trembling just enough to seem sincere. "You look thin." "I look fine." She stepped aside. The smell of roast chicken and lemon polish hit me like nostalgia weaponized. The dining room was already set. 3 plates, not 4. My brother wasn't there yet, of course. He'd arrive late, dramatic, needing attention. He always did. Dad sat at the head of the table, hands folded, jaw set in that managerial way he had when he wanted to negotiate. "Maya," he began, "this isn't a confrontation. It's a conversation." "Most confrontations start that way," I said. He ignored the comment. Mom poured me water I didn't ask for. "We just want to understand why you're doing this. We've always been a close family." I laughed softly, not cruelly, just disbelieving. "Close? You mean financially codependent?" Her face froze. "That's not fair." Neither was taking money that wasn't yours. The front door opened then, breaking the silence. Ryan, my brother, strolled in, sunglasses still on, smelling faintly of cologne and expensive failure. "Hey sis," he said too casually. "You look intense." I didn't answer. I just watched him sit down, slouching like he owned the room. Dad gestured at him. "We've talked with your brother. He admits to some mistakes, but..." "Mistakes?" I interrupted. Is that what we're calling theft now? Mom's hand twitched toward mine, a reflex she didn't complete. Sweetheart, please don't use words like that. It makes it sound worse. It is worse, I said. You used my name on the joint account to take money I earned. You told the bank it was for family expenses, but it went into Ryan's business account. I have the documents. Do you want to see them? Ryan's smirk faltered. You're blowing this out of proportion. It's not like I wasn't going to pay you back. I turned to him, my voice calm, clinical. You used my savings as venture capital. You lost it. Then you lied. That's not debt. That's deceit. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was dense, loaded. Mom shifted, eyes glistening. Maya, you don't understand how hard it's been. Your brother's trying. He just needs a little more time. Families help each other. Help, I repeated. Right. Like when I worked double shifts to pay Dad's loan after the remodel. Or when I canceled my vacation to cover your medical bills because you forgot to renew insurance? Or when I co-signed Ryan's lease because you said he couldn't get approved without me? That kind of help? Dad's jaw tightened. You're angry, I get that. But this legal nonsense... It's not nonsense, I said sharply. It's documentation. It's boundaries. You taught me responsibility, Dad. I'm just returning the lesson. Mom's voice broke slightly. You've changed, Maya. You sound... cold. I sound free, I said. Ryan scoffed. God, you're dramatic. What, you're gonna sue your own family? I looked at him steadily. No, Ryan, I'm going to expose you. The audit results are already filed. The bank confirmed the transfers. The lawyer has everything. There's no lawsuit yet, but there will be accountability. Dad's face paled. You'd ruin your brother's life over money? I leaned forward, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm not ruining anything. I'm refusing to keep fixing it. The rain started then. Slow, deliberate drops against the window pane. No thunder, just the quiet percussion of inevitability. Mom wiped her eyes. We did everything for you. I stood. No, you did everything through me. There's a difference. Ryan muttered something under his breath. Maybe an insult, maybe regret. I didn't care enough to ask. I reached for my coat. Dad stood too. You can't just walk out, we're still family. I paused by the doorway. Family isn't ownership, Dad. It's choice. And I'm finally making mine. Outside, the rain had softened to a mist. I walked to my car, every step measured, every breath steady. My phone buzzed. A message from Elaine, the lawyer. Audit complete. Official report filed. No more discrepancies pending. You're in the clear. I exhaled slowly. Not victory, just release. I sat behind the wheel for a long moment, watching the house through the wet glass. Behind those windows, voices were probably rising, accusations flying, guilt spinning like silk, but I was done listening. The drive home was quiet. The city lights blurred in the rain, amber and soft, like the world was rinsing itself clean. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. Calm, unrecognizable. For years, I'd been the family's first responder, their emotional EMT. Now, for once, I'd triaged myself first. The morning after the confrontation, I woke before sunrise. For a moment, I forgot where I was. The air was still, unfamiliar. No faint hum of the old refrigerator. No ticking from Dad's antique clock. No muffled footsteps from upstairs. Just silence. And then I remembered. This was my apartment, my space, my breath. The sheets were cool. The city outside was beginning to wake, sirens faint in the distance. A train whistle cutting through the early fog. It felt like the world was stretching, and I was too. I made coffee the way I liked it. Strong, dark, no sugar. The mug fit perfectly in my hands, warm against the slight tremor I hadn't realized was still there. I took it to the small balcony, overlooking a patchwork of rooftops and smoke-gray sky. For the first time in years, I didn't have to be anyone's anchor. No phone calls. No emergencies disguised as favors. Just quiet. It was strange, this kind of peace. Not loud or euphoric, but grounded. Like the moment right after a deep wound stops bleeding. A week passed before the first ripple reached me. An email from my mother. long, meandering, filled with half apologies and subtle barbs. "We didn't mean to hurt you. Families make mistakes. You've always been so strong. You can handle these things better than the rest of us." I read it once, twice. Then I deleted it. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Strength wasn't absorbing damage. It was knowing when to stop standing in the fire. At work, I moved through the hospital halls with the same precision as before. Charts, rounds, quick reassurances. But something inside me had shifted. When patients cried, I didn't drown in their pain. When colleagues leaned too heavily on me, I said no without flinching. Boundaries, I learned, could be a form of love, just redirected inward. One evening I met Elaine for dinner, the lawyer who'd helped me untangle the mess. She was older, composed, with a voice like sandpaper softened by experience. "You know," she said, stirring her tea, "I've seen people come out of family disputes shattered. You look lighter." "I feel like I finally stepped out of a fog," I said. She smiled. "That's what happens when you stop mistaking duty for devotion." Her words lingered long after she left. I started keeping a journal, something I hadn't done since college. Not about the past, but about what I wanted next. A small clinic by the river, maybe. A sabbatical. A cabin somewhere that smelled of pine and quiet rain. The act of imagining felt radical. Like I was giving permission to the girl I'd once been. The one who thought survival was her only purpose. 2 months later, I visited the ocean. It wasn't planned. I'd finished a shift, driven without thinking, until the skyline dissolved into horizon. The beach was empty. Wind lifted the hair off my neck. Salt clung to my skin. The tide crept forward, slow and certain. I walked barefoot into the surf until the water reached my knees. It was cold, electric, every nerve awake. I closed my eyes and breathed. Deep, unguarded. The sound of the sea filled me, relentless and forgiving all at once. This, I thought, is what peace feels like. Not silence, but space. I didn't hate them anymore. Not my mother, with her guilt disguised as love. Not my father, with his logic shaped like control. Not even Ryan, with his bottomless need. Hate was still a connection. And I was done being tied to pain. They would go on, spinning stories, rewriting history, calling it family. But I didn't need to correct them anymore. The truth didn't need witnesses. It just needed to exist. A letter arrived one morning. Not from them, but from the bank. The case had closed. Recovered funds, partial, but enough. I smiled. Justice, even in fragments, was still justice. I deposited the money into a new account under my name alone. Then I opened a second one, anonymous, and transferred a small amount to a women's legal aid foundation. Quiet retribution transformed into quiet repair. Months passed, seasons shifted. My apartment filled with sunlight and plants I forgot to water half the time. I learned to cook without rushing. I laughed more, not loudly, but with something real behind it. One night, standing at the window, city lights flickering like distant stars, I realized I didn't crave closure anymore. What I had was better. Distance, dignity, and the calm certainty that I had chosen myself. Finally. Fully. I whispered it aloud, not for anyone else, but for me. I'm free. The wind carried the words through the open window, out into the city, dissolving into night. Somewhere beyond, I imagined the sea, still moving, still vast. And I knew that no matter what they said or did, I would never be pulled back into that tide again.